Hi guys, this is Christelle from Cosmic Clinique. This is episode 13. I have got a brand new set of headphones with a mic, so I'm hoping I just sound more pleasurable to listen to. Forgive my previous episodes where I just sound like I'm not in the best environment for audio, but hopefully this sounds better. I've made a bit of an upgrade that I'm proud of. But anyways, this episode is about making cleaner decisions in business using astrology, the mind, and just establishing clarity as we are navigating through our business journey as entrepreneurs, as creators, whatever the case may be. But before we begin, I want you to just notice something for a moment. When you make decisions in your business, real decisions, not tiny ones, although they do matter, what actually happens in your mind? Do you feel clear? Do you feel like you're holding multiple possibilities at once? Are you thinking through outcomes? Are you second guessing yourself? Maybe you've got your mind's going in circles. And just notice without judging it, whether your decisions come from clarity or even pressure. Just something to think about, just to get to know how you navigate through your thoughts during the decision process. Because what I want to talk about today is how to make cleaner decisions. So whatever you've come up with based on this little, very meaningful analysis of your mind during decision making, I want you to just park that and just bear that in mind as we proceed through this episode. Yeah? Because what I want to talk about today is how to make cleaner decisions. Not faster, not more impulsive, not more productive in the way people usually mean. I mean cleaner, more aligned, and less mentally noisy. And one of the things I've noticed, especially working with founders, creators, and people who are building something from their own mind, is that decision making is rarely just about logic. It's not just about choosing between option A and option B. It's about how your mind processes uncertainty. It's about how your nervous system responds to risk. And it's about how much internal noise is present when you're trying to decide. Because if your mind is overloaded or overstimulated, or even if it's slightly dysregulated, you can still make a decision, but it just won't feel clean. You know, whether we're even conscious of that or not, there's something about it that's just not connected to you. The decision could feel rushed, it could feel forced, it could feel slightly off. Yeah, whether we choose to acknowledge that or not. And you'll often find yourself revisiting that decision because of how it was created and implemented to start with. So when I say clean decisions, what I mean is decisions that come from a place where your mind isn't overwhelmed, your thinking is not fragmented, and your nervous system is not in a reactive state. And this is where I want to bring in astrology, specifically Mercury. My ally. I spend a lot of time studying and getting to know Mercury. Because Mercury is not just how you think, it's how you process decisions. It's how you move from information to clarity to then action. And one of the biggest mistakes I see is people trying to make decisions in a way that doesn't match how their mind actually works. It doesn't match their own mental frequency. It's not aligned to their mental processing. And they try to force clarity too quickly, despite all of that. And then they try to follow frameworks that don't align with their own just general cognitive style, and they end up feeling stuck or uncertain or constantly second guessing themselves. So the first shift is this. Instead of asking, what's the right decision here? You start asking yourself, what is the cleanest way for me to arrive at a decision? Does that make sense? I hope I'm making sense here. Because for some people, clarity comes through thinking. For others, it comes through speaking. And for others, it comes through stepping away and letting the answer arrive later. That tends to be me now, actually. It's a hard skill. but it's a muscle. So, for example, if you have a more analytical Mercury, like a Virgo Mercury or a Capricorn, your mind needs structure, yeah? You need to see the details. You need to map things out. And so your decisions become cleaner when you allow yourself to go through that process fully. Don't bypass. Go through it fully. But if you have a more intuitive Mercury like Pisces, your clarity doesn't come from over-analyzing. It comes from allowing the thought to form more organically. There needs to be a flow state here. And if you try to force logic too quickly, you actually create more confusion for yourself. So this is where I've had to learn something. This is something I've had to learn personally, because I myself have Mercury in Pisces, and I don't arrive at decisions in a straight line. I definitely am a non-linear thinker. I arrive at them through a kind of internal synthesis. I sit with something, I think about it from different angles, I feel into it, and then at some point it becomes clearer. But that clarity doesn't come from forcing it, it comes from allowing it. Now, I just have to be clear here. I've implemented this process when I got to learn my own mind. Because prior to that, I definitely was reactive. I definitely tried to force logic. I definitely tried to force systems to make things work for me. But when I realized that I kept coming towards a brick wall, that things weren't quite aligning the way I needed or wanted them to, I had to change something. I had to get more aligned with my Mercury in Pisces nature. So I guess this is where people get stuck. When I try to decide too quickly and I try to eliminate uncertainty completely before acting. And neither of these approaches, they don't work long term, because business by nature involves uncertainty. There is no version of building something where you have complete information. So the goal is not to eliminate uncertainty. The goal is to make decisions cleanly within uncertainty. I'm going to say that again. The goal is to make decisions cleanly within uncertainty. And this is where your nervous system becomes just as important as your thinking. Because if your nervous system is activated, if you feel pressure, urgency, fear of making the wrong decision, your mind will reflect that. It will become scattered, more reactive, more prone to overthinking. So one of the most practical things you can do is to separate decision making from urgency. Not always, because sometimes decisions are time sensitive, but wherever possible, you try and create space. You don't decide in the middle of stress. You don't decide when your mind is overwhelmed. You allow your system to settle first, even slightly, and then you return to the decision. I'm going to give you another example. Recently I thought about a business idea and I was so excited. All right, this is just a minor example. But rather than try and do research straight away, rather than establish a website quickly and grab my social media handles and because I have already thought about the name of this company like I would usually do in the past, I decided to give myself 30 days. Does this idea, this business, this company, does it actually align with me? Is this something I actually need to do? Do I need to execute this? Actually, let me do some more research gradually over a 30-day span. And if I find towards the end of that 30 days that actually I'm no longer excited about it, let me not waste my energy, then I don't. And I'm still in that 30 days, by the way. But so that's just a practical kind of example as to what I mean. So you allow your system to settle first. Now, I want to bring this into something more practical for business, because this is where this really matters, just from a general way of speaking. If you're building something like a brand, a business, a body of work, you are constantly making decisions, right? As to, for example, what to create, what to focus on, what to say, what to offer. And if those decisions are not clean, everything downstream becomes harder. Execution becomes harder, consistency becomes harder because you're not fully behind what you've chosen. So I want to give you a simple framework, essentially. It's not rigid, it's just something you can work with, okay? When you are making decisions or a decision, ask yourself 3 things and feel free to note these down. The first one is this decision coming from clarity or from pressure or from any other kind of strenuous emotion or feeling or experience? Yeah? Because clarity and pressure, they feel different. Clarity feels grounded, by the way. Yeah? Even if it's uncertain, it feels grounded. There's a solid essence to it. But pressure feels urgent. It's reactive. Yeah? So secondly, the second question I want you to ask yourself is, have I processed this in a way that actually suits my mind? Not somebody else's method. Yeah? Your mind. Have you thought it through, spoken it out, sat with it? Whatever your process is, have you done that? Does that make sense? So ask yourself, have I processed this in a way that actually suits my mind and not somebody else's? And thirdly, does this feel clean in my body? Not perfect, not guaranteed, but clean. Because when a decision is clean, you don't keep revisiting it. You move forward. This is where I want to bring in something more, slightly broader, because as we move into the Uranus in Gemini period, or when you listen to this, actually, Uranus is probably in Gemini. Decision making is going to be, or is now, depending on when you're listening to this, it's going to become more complex. There will be more options, more information, more noise. And the people who thrive are not the ones who consume the most. They are the ones who can filter, who can process, who can decide without becoming overwhelmed. So this is not just about your business. It's about your relationship with your mind. And before we close, I want to leave you with this. Something to reflect on. If you removed the pressure to make the perfect, quote unquote, perfect decision, and instead focus on making the clean decision, what would you change? How would you move differently? What would you stop overthinking? Just sit with that, and I'll speak to you in the next episode. Peace.